Let me tell you about how Britain has accidentally become the Western world's capital of Islamic law, and why this story reveals a fascinating clash between modern democracy and ancient religious traditions. This is about how 85 unofficial courts are creating a parallel legal system right in the heart of one of the world's oldest democracies. Let's start with something remarkable. In a country famous for its centuries-old legal system, there are now 85 Sharia courts operating across the UK. Think about that. These aren't government courts, they're religious councils that have been quietly growing in number since 1982, when the first one opened in East London. But here's where things get really interesting. These courts aren't just serving British Muslims, they're becoming a destination for Muslims from all across Europe and North America. It's like Britain has become the unofficial Islamic legal capital of the Western world. The numbers are staggering. Over 100,000 Islamic marriages have been conducted in these courts. Marriages that aren't even registered with the British government. Let me show you how deep this goes. There's literally an app now for creating Islamic wills in England and Wales. And get this, it has a drop-down menu where men can select how many wives they have, from 1 to 4. Remember, polygamy is completely illegal in Britain, but in these parallel courts, it's just business as usual. Even dating apps are getting in on this. One of the biggest Muslim marriage apps in Britain has an option for men to state their polygamy plan. Whether they're planning to stick with one wife or looking for more, it's like having two completely different legal systems operating side by side in the same country. But here's what makes this situation so complex. Britain has a long tradition of religious freedom, including Jewish rabbinical courts that have been operating for centuries. So the question becomes, where do you draw the line? When does religious freedom start to undermine the fundamental principle of one law for all? The stories coming out of these courts are what really bring this issue to life. Women have reported being told they have to stay in abusive marriages. There are cases where daughters are given half the inheritance of their brothers. And then there's this quote from one court founder who said in a lecture that a man should not be questioned why he hit his wife because this is something between them. The numbers tell an alarming story. 85 Sharia courts operating across Britain, 100,000 unregistered Islamic marriages, inheritance rules giving daughters half what sons receive, and 4 wives allowed under Sharia law versus British law allowing only 1. But here's what makes this story really fascinating. It's not just about religion or law, it's about identity and integration. Britain is trying to figure out how to balance its traditions of religious tolerance with its commitment to equality under the law. It's like watching a country try to solve a puzzle where all the pieces don't quite fit together. Think about it, these courts only exist because there's a demand for them. As one expert put it, Sharia councils only exist because Muslim women need them to obtain a religious divorce. Muslim men don't need them because they can unilaterally divorce their wife. That's the kind of inequality that's baked into the system. What we're seeing in Britain is more than just a legal issue. It's a preview of the challenges facing all Western democracies as they become more diverse. How do you respect religious freedom without creating separate and unequal systems of justice? How do you integrate communities while respecting their traditions? The really wild part, this whole parallel legal system has grown so gradually that most Britons probably don't even know it exists. It's like a separate world operating right alongside their own, with its own rules, its own courts, and its own understanding of justice. The question now is, what happens next? Will Britain crack down on these courts? Will they try to regulate them? Or will they continue to grow, creating an ever wider gap between different communities in British society? One thing's for sure. The country that gave the world the Magna Carta is now facing one of its biggest tests of how to balance ancient traditions with modern democracy.